Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again so much for our time together. We're looking forward to seeing those of you out in the East Campus area. We got revival nights again tonight. We'll see you tonight at 7 o'clock. But right now, I want to talk to you about one of those great controversial scriptures. Now, there are so many of them here in 1 Timothy chapter 5. The teaching about widows and taking care of the family, and the teaching that elders should receive double honor, and the money, and the Greek word there means actually money, and don't muzzle the ox, pastors should be paid. There's so much in here. Don't entertain an accusation against an elder unless it's brought by 2 or 3 witnesses. In other words, don't listen to gossip about preachers. But there's so much going on here. But listen to the verse 23, one of the most quoted verses by, forgive me, carnal Christians today. Stop drinking only water and use a little wine because of your stomach and your frequent illnesses. Now, that verse is so quoted today by carnal Christians that want to go and get drunk. And they forget Paul had to say this to Timothy because he obviously only drank water. He didn't touch wine of any type. And he had to say little wine. He didn't say a bottle of wine. He didn't say 2 glasses of wine. He just said a little. But it's amazing how people will take this scripture and make it a doctrine for social drinking and for all kinds of problems. Recently, I saw on the Fox News website, this was about a month or so ago, they ran a thing showing per capita alcoholism consumption in the world. The number 1 nation in the world, Russia. Number 2 nation in the world, per capita alcohol, South Korea. Number 3, Philippines. Now, we didn't used to be like that. But the churches have taken a few verses, and they don't want to say no to people, and they don't want to stand up and say this isn't right. So if you're a Christian who wants to do social drinking and you're just getting really mad at me right now, I would ask that you sit back and be logical with me for just a moment. First of all, how can you take a word, wine, that is used in the Bible 2,000 years ago and think that it means exactly what is in that bottle in front of you at 9 to 11 to 15% alcohol content today? The wine that was made in that day, first of all, it was only natural fermentation. They did not have sugar in the Middle East. I mean, how do you raise sugar in the Middle East? It's a dry climate. There's no sugar in the Middle East. They couldn't get the big hype into it. Secondly, wine had to be drunk very quickly because they had no way to seal it and stop the fermentation process. And once you move past wine, then you're in the vinegar. So they had no way to store it long term in these days. I mean, you either drank it or you boiled it down into a puree, like mango puree, and then mixed water with it. And even if it was just wine that was still with an alcohol content, the Talmud, which is the Jewish religious book of that day, said you mix 3 part water, 1 part wine, because they did not want to get drunk. Well, Jesus drank wine at the Last Supper. Did he? Did he? All of the teaching of the Last Supper is they had to go to an upper room that had been prepared. The leaven had to have been removed. Is that correct? Leaven means yeast. In order for fermentation to take place, yeast must be present. There was no way they could drink fermented wine, fermenting, because it's still fermenting, fermenting wine at the Last Supper, because yeast would be present. And they had to remove all the yeast from the room. So when you sit down and begin to logically ask yourself some questions, then we back up and go, maybe I'm using some scriptures as proof texting because I want to go get drunk, and maybe I need to go back to the scriptures and see what the Bible really has to say. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm very strong on this. And I admit I make people mad. I admit people have left our church because I will not stand up and say it's all right to go do social drinking. Now, yes, I can see alcohol content in stomach medicine. Yeah, I can see that. I can see alcohol content in cough medicine and most of the medicines we take today. Yes, I have no problems with medicinal things. But this stuff of kicking back and drinking, and they say, well, you know, I drink, but I don't get drunk. Really? If you will go to the average city in the world and ask what is the legal limit for drinking, One glass of wine about like that, you are already too drunk to get behind the wheel of a car and drive. You are legally drunk. You will pass the breathometer. You will fail the breathometer test. You will not pass it. So maybe we need to back up a little bit and go, you know what? Maybe I'm taking some things out of content. I need to get back and search the Scriptures. And I think when you search the Scriptures, you'll find that Jesus, as the high priest, was not allowed to drink fermented beverages.